guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Your Yard is Now Our Park. My partner and I purchased the house next door to my best friend. I had lived with him for close to a decade when his kids were babies, so they viewed my house as an extension of theirs and were in and out all day, every day. I have a more flexible schedule than he and his wife, so I have them in the mornings after school and on days off of school. I had a pool in my yard, and because my friend's kids were still little, I installed a retractable cover and made sure it was locked so they couldn't open it. My friend's yard had one of those wood fort/climbing wall swing set deals and a large sandbox. Throughout the year, we spent most evenings outside, grilling, drinking, and watching the kids play/swim/whatever. One summer day, I came home from work a little earlier than normal and started to prep for dinner. I heard a knock at my back door, which was odd, since my buddy's kids never knocked. I went to see who it was and discovered a mom and two kids who looked to be maybe 5 to 7 years old. As I opened the door, she informed me that her kids needed to use the bathroom and that I needed to come out and get the cover off my pool. I was confused and asked her to repeat herself, and she said that her kids needed to pee and that they were hot and bored with playing in the sandbox, so I needed to open up my pool. I asked her why she was in my friend's yard and what made her think her kids were welcome to swim in my pool or use my bathroom for that matter. She got really bitchy and told me that she had moved into the house behind us and that she had watched my buddy's kids come over all the time and I opened the pool for them. She insisted that since I was willing to open my pool for the kids next door, I should also open it for the children who lived behind me. I tried explaining the relationship between my best friend's family and mine. She claimed it didn't matter, that I had known them since birth and pretty much had helped raise them. I just needed to get to know her kids too and it would be okay. I told her no and closed the door on her. She spent a while knocking and fussing at me through the window, and then had her kids pee in a planter on the side of the patio. When I still didn't react, she took her kids back into my friend's yard to play on the swings. I texted him to let him know what was going on. Right at the moment, he was letting his 300+ pounds worth of newfies out into the yard without noticing the unwelcome visitors. The mom starts shrieking and climbs up into the fort, leaving both kids on the swings. She starts demanding that we put the dogs inside, and how dare my friend let his dogs out into his own yard when her kids are clearly playing there. He tells her to get the EFF off and calls the police. When the cops arrived, she put on the whole waterworks about how her kids are just looking for friends and my buddy's kids are somehow bullying her kids, even though they'd never met. That he invited her over just to let his dogs attack her children, blah blah blah. They eventually move her back onto her own property, then come back later to tell us they warned her about coming back. She lived in that house for almost a year before she and her husband divorced. During that year, I had to replace the lock over the pool cover controls 3 times, have a fencing company remove a gate at the back of my property that was meant to let the lawnmower through, and eventually pay a security company to come check on the yard anytime we were going to be away for more than a few hours. We found her and her kids in our yards repeatedly, but she'd leave when we got home. What finally resolved the issue was my partner catching her in the pool. She told him she knew the man that owned the house and that he had told her it was okay to swim. He told her he was married to the man that owned the pool and that it's not okay to swim. She apparently had a bad reaction to realizing she was immersing her sons in gay water. We didn't see her again after that. Next one is titled, Sorry, that's not my driveway. You've been very clear. Hey all. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. I love all of these stories and have been racking my brain trying to remember something I could post here, and I think I've finally got one. A few years ago, my ex and I rented a 1-bedroom house on a dead-end street in the downtown area of the city I grew up in. We had 3 cats and I lived close enough to my job that I could walk to work every day. The city had, and has, a poor reputation, particularly with regards to heroin overdoses, but none of that affected us. The landlord who owned my home had for some reason actually built 2 homes on the same property. Mine, a small 1-bedroom home, sat maybe 6 feet from the street, and my back neighbor's home, a 2-bedroom, was kitty-cornered behind mine. There was a long shared driveway on the left side of my house that ended at her front door. The number for the neighbor's house was 11 half, and mine was 13. From the beginning, we had issues with this neighbor, whom I hereby dub Bien, for which neighbor. Her entire life would fit in the entitled bitch thread. She would frequently invite herself over to our house for dinner or drinks. She would have people coming and going loudly at all hours of the night, and frequently had the police at her home to kick out various boyfriends. By the time we moved out of that house, she had had 2 people actually overdose and die in her home and had somehow caused an electrical fire in the house that had cost about $35K to repair. Keep in mind that this house was maybe 50 feet away from mine, and neither home had particularly thick walls. Mostly, we ignored Bien. We didn't spend time with her. We didn't answer the door when she knocked, and we just left her alone. The most we interacted was when I would give her misdelivered mail. We wanted nothing to do with her and the hurricane of chaos that was her life. Of course, Bien didn't like this. She wanted to be in control of everything on the whole street. The driveway that led up to her front door was large enough to fit 4 cars, a fairly big deal in an area with mostly on-street parking. But Bien insisted to us when we first moved in that we were not allowed to park in this driveway. The driveway was only for her and her guest/children/boyfriend of the week. She said many times that she would not allow anyone to block her car in at any time. This driveway was directly on the side of my house. My desk was in our converted dining room and was right next to the driveway. Every morning there was a car parked directly next to these windows, and every morning that car started up crazy loud because it was a real piece of crap car at about 6 a.m., right around the time I was sitting down at my desk with coffee. Luckily, I'm a morning person. If I had been asleep during this time, I would have been pissed. I occasionally had family and friends come by and would warn them to not park in the driveway, but a few times they did. My sister was moving at one point and needed to store some things in my basement, but the only entrance was outside on the back of the house. So she pulled up into the driveway and started unloading boxes. Bien flew out of her house and flipped out. But my sister has her own anger issues and handled the crazy situation all on her own. Bien did this to 2 of my friends, my brother and my mother, on separate occasions. She started to flip out on my grandfather once until she saw my mother come up from the trunk of the car with his wheelchair. Bien went back into her own house this time. My ex and I didn't want to deal with her. We had our own problems and certainly didn't want to get involved in hers. Sure, it means that we couldn't use the side door of our house that led out onto this driveway unless we had 2 hours to get stuck talking to her, but we decided to just adapt. We had some lawn on the other side of our house that was brown and overgrown with poison ivy. We cleaned it out, filled it with gravel, and made it our new parking spot. Voila! Crisis averted. Then came winter. A particularly bad winter. We had feet of snow piled up. My ex had gone out and shoveled out our car and a path from our front door to the car. He was out there every hour, clearing off the path and the car and laying down rock salt. My job was waiting until the last possible second to close, so I wasn't sure if I would be heading to the office or not. My ex kindly made sure the car was available in case I needed it. Bien was pissed. We could hear her in the driveway yelling at the boyfriend of the week to shovel. We could hear her saying all kinds of bad crap about us. And we could hear when she broke her shovel, threw it into the yard, and stormed back into her house. Later that day, a plowing company came. 2 guys dug out the cars, let Bien move them, and plow their driveway. They even did their front steps. They were gone in less than an hour. Then the landlord showed up. The landlord never showed up at the property unless there was a big deal. My ex and I were in the kitchen at the time, which was also adjacent to the driveway, and could hear Bien loud conversation about how expensive the plowing company was and how much snow there still was in the driveway. It was still snowing. The landlord knocked on our side door. I opened it with a big smile. "Hi landlord, hi Bien. How are you?" Bien shoves paper at me. It's the invoice from the plowing company. So I'm sure you noticed that we had to have the driveway professionally plowed. I talked to landlord, and you have to pay half of this bill. Me? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Bien, it's expensive, and landlord says that we can take part of it out of next month's rent. Me? That's nice, but I'm not paying for that. Bien, you have to. Me? Actually, I don't. I didn't know you were getting the plow guy, and I don't use the driveway. Landlord, if service is performed on the shared parts of the property, you should split the costs. Bien, see, you have to. My eyes narrow as I turn back to look at her. Me? You've made it very clear that it's not my driveway. I'm not allowed to park in it. I had to make my own parking space. You can pay for your own driveway. Bien was speechless. She had really thought I would have just done what she wanted. Landlord, you made your own parking space. Me, yes. I've been told since I moved and that I'm not allowed to park in the driveway, and I'm not allowed to block her car at any time. She's yelled at everyone who has come here to visit me that has parked in the driveway, even if they are just stopping by for a few minutes. Bien finally looks ready to re-enter the fight, but landlord speaks first. Landlord, thank you, don't paniklama. Enjoy the rest of your night. I smiled at them, closed my door, and locked it. I could hear Bien trying to argue with landlord, and could even hear her walk up and down my steps, wanting to knock on my door again. But landlord was firm. She had to pay for the bill herself. And after that, she had to let me park in the driveway too. Last one is titled, Hit the Duck Off My Lawn. I work as the master electrician at a medium-sized concert venue. The venue is owned by a larger resort company which has hotels and dining on the same property. During the summers, we put on all sorts of events and concerts for the public and our guests. Outside of the venue is a large grassy area where people often play games or picnic. As a courtesy to our guests, we often put up large video screens and speakers on the lawn so that those who don't want to pay for the show can sit outside and watch the show while they play or picnic. As the outside lawn viewing area is almost always free, people have become accustomed to going out hours, if not days before, and setting up chairs and blankets to save a spot. Now onto the story. One day before our biggest show of the season, tickets were sold out. Because of this, the artist manager requested we fence off the lawn area and make it paid, which was no problem. The tour manager also requested we not allow anyone access to the lawn before doors opened, which wasn't typical, but we understand and was easy enough. The morning of the event, the entire lawn got fenced off and signs reading "Lawn Access Prohibited Before Doors" were put up. Security wasn't scheduled to start until mid-afternoon, so me and the rest of the staff were asked to periodically check outside and make sure people were following the rules. Around noon, me and others finished setting up lighting and special effects on stage. I had heard from my coworkers that they had already had to kick many people off the lawn who were trying to set up chairs. Being that my job was done for the moment, I figured I would check outside. When I got outside, I looked around the large area, and I saw what would soon become clear: a very entitled parent. I stood in astonishment as this moderately overweight woman was in the middle of struggling to throw her lawn chairs and blanket over our fence. As soon as the shock and mild amusement left my face, I began walking the 100 or so yards to talk to her. As I got closer, the entitled parent had finished throwing her stuff over the fence and had walked to a small break in the fence. Me: Hi, entitled parent, how are you today? Fine. Me: Well, that's good. Hey, look, I'm sorry to inform you that the lawn area is actually closed for a paid event tonight. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. What? What do you mean closed? I'm just trying to set up chairs and save a spot for my kids tonight. Me: I understand that, ma'am, but we have been specifically asked by the artist to not let people do this for this event. It's not like it's a big deal. You guys always let people set up beforehand. This is bullshit. Me: I understand that you are frustrated, ma'am, but these are the rules for tonight, and it's the reason for the fencing and signs. I'm sorry, but you need to leave. You can't do this. This is public property, and you can't make me leave. I'm putting my stuff down now. Me: Ma'am, first, this is not public property, it's owned by the resort. Second, you are not putting your stuff down. You need to leave now, or I will call resort security. No. I want to speak to your manager. Take me to him now. Me: I can't let you in the venue, ma'am. The resort is very strict about security on show days inside the venue. The best I can do for you is go talk to him and come back. That will have to do, said while arms crossed and pouting. I walk back across the grass and back into the venue. After several minutes, I find my boss in his office. My boss was in the middle of an important email but tells me to come in. Hey, what's up? I explained the entire situation to my boss. What follows next has got to be one of my favorite moments from this job. Without looking up from what he's typing, he says in a stern voice, "Tell that witch to get the duck off my lawn." And so I did. I walked all the way back out to where she was and told her she had to leave, and that if she didn't, she and her kids would not be able to come tonight and security would be called. I think this mild threat finally got through to her because she turned around and started walking back to the crack in the fence. She came in all while cursing me out loudly, saying I would be fired. Finally, it was over and I could get back to the job I actually enjoy. As I walked back inside, I turned to look. I get to see her struggle to throw her chairs back over the fence one last time. It put a smile on my face the rest of the day, and I never saw her again. This was truly my first altercation with an entitled parent, and I think I will remember it forever. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed.